SMT Nation, we back with another podcast. I have Dennis. I have Dave. What is up, gentlemen? What's going on?
Not a whole heck of a lot, really.
Dude, we got to talk about a couple of things here. We're going to do the Q2 earnings performance. There's a lot of elements to it, but we'll do it. It's for T-Mobile. We now have the numbers from all three of the big three. I guess we could count Dish, maybe. I don't know. They're not really doing a real like postpaid situation just yet. So I mean I'll cover it in a video. Probably won't discuss it too much on a podcast or anything. But
Dish lost
yeah,
all their TV customers.
yeah, it's a dying, it's an extinct species, or I should say it's an endangered species facing extinction, and I think even more so that's problematic for them. Excuse me, is the trouble that they have and just the wireless side. Like we're encouraged by some of the things they've done up to this point. But prepaid, we can't be excited about. They've done nothing but lose customers. So when we do get Boost Mobile news, I'll update. We get their earnings, and we'll talk about the company and what they're up to in postpaid. I cover all those details, but it's nothing to get excited about until they do a grand scale launch national.
Well, you
I
mentioned
mean,
they
go
you
ahead, Dave.
mentioned that they had lost like 2 million, almost 2 million customers, and I think they only got like something like 8 or 9 million with Boost to begin with.
Well, I'm tracking it. If you look at the trajectory on it, I mean, confirmed they've lost over 1.3 million. So if they continue on this path where they're losing 200,000, 300,000 customers a quarter, they've only owned the company for like 7 quarters, bro. So we're talking about a good quarter for them is losing 100,000. Like that's a good quarter. Are we, so it's hard for me to get excited about that piece. So now that we have like the AT&T numbers, the T-Mobile numbers, the Verizon numbers, we could talk about everything collectively as an industry, then look at how T-Mobile compares to the industry. And then we've got some Verizon news to discuss on the prepaid side. And then there was an article actually from CNET, and it was kind of discussing how like 3G services kind of, it's getting terminated and such. And, somebody brought up, well, what about 4G LTE? So we can kind of discuss the 3G lifespan and why it hasn't, people say it didn't reach a pinnacle or a peak. And there's a reason for that, right? There's a lot of technological reasons for that. So I want to discuss that piece. Plus, I think we should do our predictions of where we see 4G LTE kind of calling it a day and what year or in how many years, 4G LTE will be, going the way of the dodo bird, just like its counterpart 3G.
Oh, I like this.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good show, man. It's great to have you, Dave. I'm glad you're here as well as Dennis, as always, man. Thanks for being such a gracious guest, and we're glad to have you both. All right, let me start here with the first piece. I'll go ahead and link this. It's in the show notes if you are watching this on replay. If you're here in the live, it's in the live chat. And then all I got to do now is just go ahead and do a screen share and we can discuss the numbers. And I've had like a ton of notes of things I want to discuss about the T-Mobile earnings. I mean, it kind of more the same in one respect, and then in other respects, I think they actually overachieved. Meaning, like I have my predictions, Dennis had his, and stuff like that, and Moose had his, and we can kind of look back and see how accurate we were. All right, so let's start first with customer growth. All right, I'll go over through most of the elements, and then you guys can kind of give your take. We have 439,000 postpaid smartphone net adds. AT&T came in at 793. Verizon came in with 10. Okay, so 439 for T-Mobile, 439,000. AT&T 793,000. Verizon 10,000. Total postpaid ads for T-Mobile came in at 1.7 million, which I think AT&T came in at like 1.3 million. So the quarter goes as follows. AT&T added the most postpaid phone customers, the most profitable phone customers. T-Mobile added the most total connections, to kind of see how that is. And of course, Verizon doesn't even try. It's kind of a joke at this point. So one of the things I found when I was looking at the numbers is T-Mobile came in with what would have been 723,000 net adds, but they lost 300,000 Sprint customers due to the Sprint LTE shutdown. I'm telling you, there are a lot of sites out there. We'll talk about this with the network. There are a lot of sites out there that have not been T-Mobile integrated, and those Sprint elements that were on those towers were providing network access to those Sprint customers. And T-Mobile just didn't get to those sites yet. It was premature to shut down Sprint LTE, in my opinion. I don't see a good way of doing it. Like, I'm not saying that I could come up with a better plan, but to lose 300,000 Sprint customers due to network tells me that they just bit the bullet. They were like, "Oh, that's not so bad." I think that's wrong. 300,000 customers at an ARPU of probably 40 or $45. That's going to hurt.
I mean, it comes down to cost, Need. At the end of the day, if it costed more to maintain those legacy Sprint sites than it did to
No, it's not about that, Dennis. But they're paying customers, right? So you could do the numbers. We can calculate that, right? 300,000 customers with an average ARPU of, let's call it, $45.
Honestly,
right. But
I'm saying point, you just got to take the hit at some point, because I mean, the likelihood of Sprint customers changing to the T-Mobile network, like in those areas, maybe they couldn't, but the likelihood of Sprint customers not knowing that the network was going away had to have been really low. I think at some point you've just got to take the hit and be like, okay, we need to go ahead and just get rid of this.
Well, what I'm saying is, Sneak, going back to the cost piece, like when I say cost, I'm not just talking about like cost to rent the backhaul or anything like that. I'm talking like, for a lot of those Sprint sites, I'm sure there's probably renewal agreements coming up, right? And it's very likely that a lot of those sites, T-Mobile opted to determine that they didn't need them, essentially, for like the amount of customers that were in those areas, or there might have been a T-Mobile site that was, relatively speaking, already covering that area. So they were just like, yeah, it's cheaper for us to just let these go. We'll lose 300,000 customers, but we'll be saving X amount over the next 10 years or whatever.
And they'll gain that back in like a quarter or two.
Go ahead, Dave.
Sorry, they'll gain that back in like a quarter or two anyway. Like, it'll hurt for like 1 quarter.
But from a business standpoint, it's much more expensive to garner a new customer. They already paid for that customer. They bought Sprint. Now they're going to have to pay for that customer again to bring them back. These are the things that I think are short-sighted about T-Mobile. There are a lot of incredible things about the T-Mobile company. They've taken advantage and optimized every element of their business for the last 10 years. There's so much to respect about T-Mobile and what they've done. That's the one thing I've noticed, though, about them. They're very short-sighted. They looked at this and made a short-term decision that it was going to be cheaper, as Dennis described. I agree with Dennis. But it's going to be more expensive to not only pay for that Sprint customer the first time when they bought Sprint. Remember, 45 million customers, they paid for that. And then to bring them back from whatever competing MVNO or AT&T or Verizon.
Yeah, but Sneed, it's actually in T-Mobile's favor for the Sprint customer to go away and come back, because Sprint customers are lower ARPU customers. So you get them to leave. They lose their legacy grandfathered plan. Now, if they want to come back, they're going to be on Essentials, Magenta MAX, whatever plan that's making more money for T-Mobile.
Yeah, but that's speculative. That's speculative. Paying for the customer twice is expensive. I still can't justify the means. If I'm looking at, if I can just create an arbitrary number, that's kind of why exactly I kind of said, well, let's call it a $45 ARPU. If it was a frickin', if it was one of those, what do they call those things? Those free spark lines or whatever they call them. Fine, I'm with you. Yeah, like whatever. Yeah, if those are still around, then I totally get it, Dennis. I agree. But there are people on those family plans that have like 10 lines. And those 10 lines, I mean, that's a big account. That's $400 probably.
I mean, if you compare this whole Sprint thing and losing the customers to, like, for example, Facebook, right? And the fact that, like, they do all kinds of crap, and they're like, okay, the fines that we'll get from the government for doing this is way less than the money we will make from doing this. Therefore, it makes perfect sense to go ahead and do it, even though it's not the morally correct thing to do. I feel like it's similar to that.
Septian asks a good question here. He's on fire. who's going to get those customers? Verizon? I say no to Verizon. I think a few might go to Verizon. It's going to be a small number. I think they're cost-sensitive customers. In
I
most
think
instances, they're probably
Mint.
starting at AT&T, and then they're also looking at big cable.
What about something like Mint?
Sure.
I could see them getting them.
Sure, but they're probably trying to stay away from the T-Mobile network. You get what I'm saying? So if
True.
They're
that's
gonna
if they're trying to stay away from the T-Mobile network, I'm leaning towards big cable, like Xfinity or Spectrum. I'm leaning towards AT&T, or they're going to explore some other MVNO options.
Well, let's not guess. Let's base it off of hard data, based off what Roger has said. The Sprint customers are going over to AT&T because, like you touched on, Sneed, they're price sensitive. And more importantly here, touching on something here, is that T-Mobile is fine bleeding Sprint customers because in exchange for the Sprint customer that they're losing, they're getting Verizon customers, and Verizon customers don't care. They're getting on Magenta MAX and not complaining. Like, so they're bleeding a quote unquote less profitable customer in favor of a Verizon customer. So it's a win-win for T-Mobile.
So
Yeah,
you're sacrificing say a $45 line, and in return you're getting an $80 or $85 line. Yeah, I see
Yeah, but
that.
it might be like a $15 or a $30 line, to be honest. Like, Kickstart
Yeah.
plans were cheap.
I think the Kickstart plans are done at this point. If they're not done, they're going to be done soon. I don't know how long they were allowed to honor those for, but I'm sure they're trying to put an end to it quick.
It was
They want
3
to get those
years.
people on essentials. You know what I mean? All right. Just to kind of wrap up the customer growth side, they added a record for new accounts, plus 380,000 in the quarter. They're very proud about that. They are now increasing guidance for customer adds, 6.3 million through the course of the year. There are a lot of free connected devices that are being documented in this. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but connected devices are cool. I'm sure they're selling. I guess they got a free tablet promo for kids, so that I think that's what boosted the total net adds so high to 1.7 million. So what do you guys think? Pretty good growth quarter for them overall. Dave, I'll start with you.
Oh yeah, I think it was really good, them adding 380 something thousand accounts themselves, and then 1.7 million like actual like net ads. I was like, those are some crazy numbers, and the churn coming down to like 0.80. I thought that was really amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
And the T-Mobile home internet piece, that was amazing. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we'll do the home internet piece too, but I'm glad you brought up the churn. They have their total churn rate down to 0.80, which means even with all the Sprint built into it, their Magenta branded churn is very, very low. Like it probably would have been lower than AT&T or Verizon's. It probably would have been sub 0.75. That's pretty shocking. Dennis, go ahead.
I mean, it's not all that shocking to me because we've said this before on the show, but consumers care about one thing more than anything else, and that's price. T-Mobile is the cheapest of the postpaid carriers by leaps and bounds now, thanks to the fact that they haven't touched their prices, and with all the free line deals, like the third line free deals and stuff like that, they are significantly more affordable than their competitors at the moment.
All right.
And if you're upset and you want to switch to someone else, it's a harder pill to switch when, as you mentioned, Verizon's network reliability at one point has come up into question, right? The tremendous Verizon in a lot of places has become into question as far as unparalleled coverage. And as much as I love AT&T along here on the East Coast, AT&T on the western parts of the United States doesn't seem to be providing that same tremendous, network excellence that we see here, like in Pittsburgh and Ohio and stuff like that. So if the networks are comparable, it just comes down to price at that point.
Yeah, good point, Dennis. Good stuff. Let's go ahead and transition to the home internet piece, fixed wireless access. 560,000 ads. We have now a total of 1.5 million connections on the T-Mobile home internet service. They continue to take their share from urban suburban. 2/3 of their additions are from the urban and suburban core, 1/3 from rural. That always surprises me. I think I just got to let it sink in. People obviously are fleeing cable. They mentioned cable specifically. They gave some details and insight on this, which is pretty interesting. A lot of the additions on the home internet piece are current wireless customers that T-Mobile now refers to as bundlers. Some customers are switching to get the deal with the Magenta MAX, but the money guy, I forget his name, and then Mike Sievert, the CEO, didn't
Osvaldic?
provide. Yeah, is that Osvaldic? They didn't give any specific numbers. So this tells me that they're not getting a super high rate of conversion, but they are getting some customers that are going to the Magenta Max in order to get that 50% discount on the home internet and then kind of bundle it together. The other thing that I noted was there's no business versus residential breakdown. Verizon does that. So Verizon gives you like how many total fixed wireless ads they had, and then they give you the business and they give you the residential. So T-Mobile hasn't, at least to this point, they haven't done that. Uh, the interesting thing, and Dennis, you're going to have to jump in on this. Industry leading ISPs, when it comes to home ISPs, broadband providers, T-Mobile's going to have the most additions. This against any fiber provider, against any cable company, they are going to be the fastest growing home broadband provider 2 quarters in a row. In and of itself seems shocking. I know that big cable has continued to be in like public denial about T-Mobile home internet and Verizon home internet. They still claim that they don't feel them, but I have seen some advertising from big cable operators focusing, saying things like, we're faster than the wireless guys. Well, clearly you felt compelled to state that in an advertisement, which means that it is true. You do notice them and they are hitting your bottom line in some way, shape, or form. They also mentioned, and this is where you guys can kind of jump in on this, prepaid has not been realized when it comes to fixed wireless access. It looks to me like they're going to go in on the prepaid option, the Metro by T-Mobile setup, where you can pay like a one-time fee of $50 or $100 for the home internet gateway, and then you get the service at the normal price per month. You just have to clear like some sort. I don't know if it's like a credit check, but they do like some kind of payment history, and then they see if you qualify, and then it matches your address. But they are winning when it comes to fixed wireless access. That is 100% a growth vector for them, and it is a very profitable vector for them. They have to be thrilled about those numbers.
Oh, absolutely. Like the T-Mobile home internet is and a really amazing product actually, because I can get Comcast here, like I can get Comcast cable here at the house, and I've been having some issues with my gateway here recently where it was causing some issues where they had changed something with the local tower and they had like tilted a panel differently or something and it was causing some weird issues. And instead of going to Comcast, which I could have done, I'm like, okay, let me just move this gateway and figure out where the new best place for it is and move my router and gateway setup over there so that I don't have to worry about calling Comcast and everything. And I mean, it's really an amazing product. And I was actually on Reddit the other day and there was a T-Mobile like a T-Mobile home internet salesperson complaining to the T-Mobile ISP subreddit about people who were telling people how to get the service outside of the addresses that are available for it. And I simply told him, I simply replied and said, look, the reason that people are doing that is because you can do it. And people so want to get off of these other ISPs that have treated them so bad for so long that they're literally willing to jump through all kinds of hoops to get it, no matter what it takes.
Mm, I don't know. I mean, people want competition, that's for sure. People want options. But at the end of the day, people also just want their service to work. Um, I can definitely see the plight of the Reddit rep that you're mentioning, being upset that people are trying to get the service in areas where the service isn't ready yet because it has a negative impact for that person that's using it, for everyone that's using that cell site in that given area, and for T-Mobile customer support reps as a whole anyway. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, So that's a thing. And then also, let's just put something out there, Dave. Like, you are one of the lightest internet users I think I know in the community. Like, you told me you use less than 150 gigs, generally speaking, on average of home internet. Does that sound about right?
Somewhere between 130 and 160 at the high end. Yep, sounds about right.
Yeah, so like your usage is very light, like to the point where I would put you up there with like where I would envision like my aunt who like just checks emails and stuff, which is fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not demanding in any stretch of the word. For the family household that's going to be doing video streaming like on a regular basis, like that's their main entertainment consumption. For the household that has the kid that wants the game, for the household that needs to do reliable work from home with like Zoom conference calls, which T-Mobile does not do well with Zoom for whatever reason, the T-Mobile home internet product doesn't matter. It's not a good product. Like, it's missing so many critical things to make it a home internet replacement, which is what it's setting out to be, that it's just not there yet. Like, I've said this before, and Sneed has heard me say this. The Verizon fixed wireless home internet impressed me because it was the first fixed wireless solution that actually felt like a home internet replacement. It had the features, it had port forwarding, it had certain things. Even then, though, the person that got set up for it is planning to swap it out to go back to cable.
I think the problem with Verizon's fixed wireless is that it's so limited in where you can actually get it. Like, people are actually able to circumvent the system to get the T-Mobile home internet pretty much anywhere. Like here, like it's not available at my house either. But yet I just did a speed test a minute ago and got 200 down by 10 up. That's perfectly fine. The cell site is perfectly capable of managing all the users and me on the home internet.
So
but yet it says it wasn't available.
The speed test is only a fraction of the view of what makes up your internet experience, though, Dave. Like, if you were to get deeper, start doing like packet, like do like a ping test to see like how your packet of traffic gets routed throughout the T-Mobile network.
And I have.
Look at latency, look at buffer blow, look at time, look at what happens when there's even like a couple of cell phones consuming data and what happens to the T-Mobile home internet. It gets real bad. Like, literally, when I was at Stetson's place up in Longmont, Colorado, with line of sight to the tower, we were testing the T-Mobile home internet there. And I remember it only took a few of my phones doing a speed test for the T-Mobile internet just to basically time out. Like, it's not the only places where it's good is places where it's competing against DSL. Like, if you're trying to compare it to a cable product, as much as people hate cable, it doesn't win in any given area. It can't provide faster download speeds. It can't provide consistent, reliably faster upload speeds. Ping times are orders of magnitude worse. It lacks port forwarding features. It lacks any form of like network management. The way the traffic gets routed is 100% different. It's more of a mobile network first experience. Home internet, like hotspot as a secondary almost. Like, nothing about it equals home internet replacement. Traditional services don't play nicely with it.
See, I get where you're coming from, but I've honestly not had those experiences. I mean, the absolute worst I get is sometimes I'll get like 50 megabits a second at worst. And generally it's up over 200. And like, the latency is a bit higher. I had to change servers from a Mastodon server in Europe to a Mastodon server here in the States because my ping times were just high enough that it was starting to cause problems. But by changing servers to one in the United States, it completely fixed it.
What's up, Pete?
Oh, man, I hear that voice.
Here we go.
How's it going, Dave?
It goes. Go ahead, sir.
I just jumped in and I've had this on mute, so continue and I'll play along.
Well, as
you guys mind if I get to the super chats real quick?
Go ahead.
Okay, so this one dates back a few minutes ago from Chame. Appreciate the super chat. He said Verizon customer service has finally matched Optimum and Cox. That's not good. I don't like the sound of this.
Sounds like an improvement.
No, this sounds really bad, bro.
No, to me
Wait,
that sounds like an improvement for Verizon.
if they've managed to hit Cox levels, that's really bad.
Yeah, but like when calling Optimum, I haven't got disconnected. Got a super chat from Chanel 808 Life saying with $2, I am at 772 subscribers. Hope me hit 100 subs. He paid for his endorsement, Sneed.
Yeah, there you go. Can we get a link for Lawrence's channel if you guys want to see some speed testing on the Hawaiian Islands for Magenta MAX, T-Mobile Home Internet, and all things T-Mobile? Do subscribe and watch some of his videos. Check out his content, and you'd be supporting an SMT supporter. So appreciate that very much, Lawrence. Thank you.
So I just want to address real quick when we were talking. Cleaver IV had mentioned that Hulu Live doesn't play nicely, for example, with T-Mobile Home Internet.
Yeah, that's
no, it does not. But that's a Hulu issue.
Dennis, Disney has the problem. I mean, you can use YouTube TV, no problem. So the problem's with Disney.
That is a Hulu issue because what they're doing is they're doing IP based. Mm-hmm. And when you do IP based in a world like today with all kinds of CGNAT, you can't do that in DHCP.
You say that, but at the end of the day, does the end consumer care? And the answer is no. And also, I'll just say that that's not really like. While I see what you're saying, it's a Hulu problem. I would argue it's more of a T-Mobile problem. Every traditional ISP gives you an IP address that's your IP address, even with carrier grade NAT, which ISPs do use for IPv4. You're going to get a dedicated IPv6 address in that scenario that's not carrier grade NATed. T-Mobile doesn't do that.
Hold up.
Yeah. Well, I think they do give you a dedicated IPv6, but Hulu doesn't read the IPv6.
No, they do not. Sneed, pull up that last comment from EM Tech real quick, talking about Verizon customer service.
Oh.
He says he called Verizon to get a SIM activated on an existing line, waited an hour. He got a rep, though, so that's an improvement. But the rep didn't activate it and shipped him out a new SIM without asking.
All right, gents, we got to move on. We got to keep this pretty tight here. Let's talk network. All right, so we already discussed the Sprint T-Mobile integration process. It definitely has its issues with the loss of 300,000 Sprint customers due to Sprint LTE shutdown. That means they were unable to integrate the sites in time before the shutdown. Therefore, customers had to bounce. They had to pivot. I don't blame them for leaving. If the service doesn't work, they're going to have to go. And of course, if they're objective enough, they could always come back at a later time should T-Mobile come back with, some kind of a network upgrade or something in the area and improve the situation. And then they become obviously an option. We know that they compete with pricing. But clearly this is a T-Mobile issue. I think the issue is that they were unable to spend the money or unwilling to spend the money on those specific sites at this time. Therefore, that the site went down, the sites, whatever, how many were impacted. CapEx is a finite resource, and I think no company is as cost sensitive when it comes to spending on the network as T-Mobile is, because we've seen them take shortcuts in the short term, and then they've had to come back to several tower sites, at least in the Cleveland area, I could speak to it. They'd rather climb a tower site 3 times in 4 years than to just do it right the first time. And that's the only thing I would truly change about T-Mobile when it comes to the network piece. They do things that are so short-sighted that it almost doesn't make business sense, and I question why they do that sort of thing.
Well, at least in your situation, Sneed, anytime they touch your site, it's going to be better than it was before. Here in Pittsburgh, T-Mobile literally makes sites worse, or they'll start touching a site but won't finish upgrading the site until, say, November.
And I honestly wonder which is worse, because you've got, on the one hand, we chide T-Mobile about doing that whole, touching the site 4 times in 4 years or whatever, once a year. But then you've got Verizon with their Band 13 sites that I haven't touched in 20 years either. So, which is worse?
I must say, I've enjoyed all the incremental site modernizations I've gotten on T-Mobile. And as a result, I have this one tower that I connect to N41 on T-Mobile, and on my Verizon phone, I'm on 1X.
Like I don't feel like
I
you should
mean,
touch a site every year, but every
the
20 years is
ideal
fine.
here, the ideal here is that if you're going to touch a site, upgrade it to the maximum so that way you can work on the next site. And when you're going to do an upgrade, do it in a cluster. Don't just do like one site out of the 10. Do all 10 of them when you're doing this planned execution for upgrades in that given area, and time it in such a way where that if one site's going to be down for the example of a couple of months because of waiting for backhaul or whatever, then make sure that there is another serving cell that can provide coverage in that area so you don't just have a dead spot of unusable coverage.
Look,
T-Mobile,
I'm just questioning it from the respect that, T-Mobile will toot their own horn and say, do it the most cost effective, we're the most efficient. Well, that's just not true. I see them waste a lot of money every time they send a crew to go and do something. And,
It,
and they also don't upgrade their own sites, and they don't manage their own sites. They call Ericsson to do their work. They call, the Nokia to do installations.
it's need.
That's the only management team, like the engineering side, I've never seen on a site. I see AT&T guys on AT&T sites all the time. I see Verizon sites on Verizon team members on Verizon sites all the time. I never see T-Mobile guys on the site.
Hey, Sneed.
Yeah.
Would you say AT&T's Band 14 deployment was most cost effective?
Well, the only thing I would say to that is they have no choice. Isn't that in the contract? I mean, if they violate the
Yeah,
contract,
and
they
it
lose
was
the money.
government subsidized.
Yeah, so like that's a little bit different. I think T-Mobile obviously is motivated to improve their network, but they're not bound by a contract.
I mean, if we look at approaches, AT&T is honestly the best when it comes to deployments and upgrades, generally speaking. They go
Aside
to
from my dead zones.
But when they do go to a cell site, they upgrade all gear, not just add a couple of antennas. No, they upgrade everything. If there was old LTE gear, it gets ripped, replaced, upgraded, as well as the 5G C-band gets added. Everything gets added. Backhaul gets updated. And when it's on, within about a couple of weeks, it's optimized, ready to rip, ready to go, and it's a whole new experience. T-Mobile upgrade looks like something like they might add N41 antenna, but not upgrade the backhaul for literally like 2 more years. So while the N41 is being beamed, there's no capacity increase at all because the backhaul on that site might be 2 literal T1 lines bonded together. And that's not just me pulling something out of my butt. That literally happened. And it just makes me question everything, as Sneak kind of touched on in that scenario where
Hey, Dennis, was one of those T1 lines going to a Band 13?
T-Mobile doesn't have Band 13.
No, but Verizon does.
I kind of think that T-Mobile ought to establish a thing where they upgrade, like they touch every single site that they own, like once every, say, 6 years or something.
Listen, it shouldn't be time-based. It should
T-Mobile be demand-based, right?
Yeah, I was going to say T-Mobile should be smart enough to know. Like, T-Mobile has a wealth of information, things that we don't even have access to. They can see where populations are increasing. They can see where subscribers are specifically being added on a zip code level whenever you add that account. Like there is ways to project demand for the future. T-Mobile tends to be very retroactive in retroactive is the wrong word here, but they tend to be always on the back heel of responding to congestion instead of proactively going to areas and adding capacity, anticipating congestion.
No, I think retroactive was the right word.
AT&T, on the other hand, tends to be more proactive. Like, for example, take my small rural town, right? They went out there and upgraded that cell site with every band that AT&T had in their arsenal towards like the tail end of LTE, even though it's a very, very small town. And even now, there's still more capacity than even needs to be there at the moment. But during the summer every year, there are times where that cell site sees peak loads, maybe for about like a 2-month stretch, because there's a race course up by where my small town is at along the highway that cell site also touches, and having that extra capacity there makes sure the whole world doesn't come essentially crumbling down. Verizon Verizon kind of also falls in this camp where they'll add capacity even if it doesn't require, like, for example, look at their millimeter wave deployment over in, say, somewhere like Vegas, right? Like, Vegas is a very good Verizon market. Does Vegas require all the millimeter wave and small cells and everything else that are being added over there right now at this present day moment? No. Will that capacity be saturated at any time in the next 4 years? Also, probably no, especially with the C band also being there. But yet Verizon still went ahead and did it, right? And T-Mobile could learn from both of them in that sense. Like, putting your spectrum up on air is and having the capacity there is one of the best investments that you can possibly make, because now you've made it so that you can actually grow and gain and retain market share in those areas where you do the upgrades, instead of just leaving the backhaul at like the lowest, cheapest, most cost effective thing every single time.
All right, we gotta discuss this next piece here, just to kind of wrap up the Sprint stuff. Sprint plan and billing migrations are ongoing. They're talking about it being completed by the middle of 2023. It's in progress. It's in process, but they'll continue to work towards that. In terms of SprintNet, only 1% of traffic is left on SprintNet. It will be 0% traffic at some point this quarter. The customers that are leaving from the Sprint side, leaving T-Mobile, we'll see. They're technically free agents. We'll see if they make it back at some point in the near future. Some commentary from Neville Ray and also Mike Sievert. From Mike Sievert, we are a pure play mobile company. We offer the best network and the best value. What do you think about that, Dennis?
Could you repeat that? You broke up a little for me.
Mike Sievert referred to T-Mobile as a pure play mobile company, best network, and best value. What do you think about those statements?
I mean, I guess best network can have a lot of meanings. I would not define T-Mobile as best network. But I would say that T-Mobile is arguably best value, because their plans do provide, in my opinion, the best bang for the dollar as far as features go compared to the current postpaid offerings from either AT&T or Verizon. So I can agree with the value proposition, but as far as best network, I think they still have a very long way to go in many areas, whether it be literal square miles of just raw coverage in the country. I still think capacity is an issue in a lot of spots for them, where they're heavily relying on that band 71 only, essentially, for their coverage. I think consistency, like, is honestly T-Mobile's even most important, biggest issue to address, because, like I talk about all the time on here in Pittsburgh, one cell site might be tremendous with a great experience. The next cell site, you might not even be able to place a phone call. Meanwhile, you get somewhere like Longmont where Pete's at, and T-Mobile's providing a tremendous experience. There's no real expectation that I can assume with T-Mobile whenever I'm getting signal from them. I don't know if it's going to be a good experience or not. Like with Verizon, I know that if I'm on LTE, it's going to be very slow, essentially. Slow but usable for basic things, right? I know if I see 5G UW, it's going to be tremendous. With AT&T, I know that LTE is going to be pretty much guaranteed to be fast and usable. And with 5G Plus at the moment, I know that that's going to be a little bit hit or miss when it comes to AT&T because of a variety of issues. But T-Mobile, I can't even make an assessment. Like, it's so all over the place.
All right, Dave, jump in. The two statements are: we are a pure play mobile company, and we offer the best network and the best value.
As far as the best value, I definitely agree. I think they do offer the best value. The best network thing is arguable. I think it really depends on where you set your goalposts. If you're saying absolute best coverage, no, I disagree with that. Best LTE network, probably not. I would disagree with that. But if you were to say T-Mobile has the best 5G network, I would agree with that. But I think it really depends on where you set your goalposts on that, and that's really a subjective thing. As far as the pure play wireless, yeah, I think so, because I mean, they really don't do any kind of wireline, at least yet. They've been playing with that fiber in New York that they've kind of leased or whatever. Not Lumen. Can't remember the name of it right off. It might have, yeah,
It's
Pilot. That was it.
Pilot for the
Pilot.
pilot program.
Yeah, so they've been playing with that, but as a general rule, their home internet is wireless, their phones are wireless, and they offer like discounts on Netflix and things like that, which are OTT, over the top TV services that are done over the internet, done over IP. So yeah, I would agree with that statement.
Pete, you go.
Broadly speaking, for network, they have some gold. They have some turds. They're still in the improvement side. Although there were some routes I've taken driving around Colorado where Verizon dropped on the Fold 2 more than T-Mobile did. So on a large scale, probably not the best network, probably Verizon, but on a more localized level, you may see that they're actually the best network. As for affordable, I'm on T-Mobile Business. Sneed has one of my lines. If I was on Verizon Business, I'd be looking about $120 more a month, and I'd have worse service where I live. So affordability is there. And yeah, going with what Dave said, they're targeted with wireless, be it the phone, the internet, or the over the top. I just hope, within the next year or two, we get a good, largely consistent experience if we go coast to coast.
I mean, can we just agree that there's not many places where T-Mobile is generally speaking the defined best? Like if we're being generous here, out of all the different cities across the country, and I'm being generous when I say
Did
this.
I say they were the best?
No. But you said in certain areas.
Yes, I did. And
like broadly.
in my market, in my city, they appear to be the best. I have access to the three major players, and T-Mobile's the most consistent and the fastest.
But what I wanted to get at is that is like the exception, is what I will say. Like it's very, very rare that T-Mobile is the defined best in any given market.
I'm sure Lawrence would say on his Hawaiian island, they're the best there too.
You know what I think we're starting to see is they are clearly the capacity leader, which a lot of people will correlate to the best. Because oftentimes what you see from rival carriers is when somebody is, using data intensive tasks and their carrier of choice is stuttering along on a congested site, they'll try T-Mobile and see, oh wow, I mean, look at this speed, it's great. This is gonna change my experience. So they make the switch. They try T-Mobile and they're like, dude, it's never congested. There's tons of capacity on these sites, newly upgraded sites, N41, complete modernizations, new sites getting built. T-Mobile's going to be the move if you want the capacity play. And I know that there's things like calling, and Dennis, you've done a good job of highlighting the importance of, like peering and routing and, QCIs. We've talked about those things a lot. I just think that in 2022, with the emphasis on a data experience, so many people equate capacity, to best experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but what good is 600 megabits of bandwidth if your ping time spikes so high that you can't even load up the Sheets rewards app because it times out? Like that's what I mean. Like seeing a good speed test, I love seeing a good speed test. It gets me all good and warm and filling inside. But like when it comes time for me to actually do the task that I want to do, whether it's pulling up the Sheets reward card to scan for my Sheets points at the gas station or whatever, or loading
Your
up.
favorite FaceTime because you're not using Duo?
I mean, blame Sneed for always FaceTime me. I downloaded Duo just for him. But
See,
the point being is that the capacity is one step in making a great network, right? Like step one, like that's one component of it. But if it doesn't translate into an improved experience, then it doesn't mean anything. Like in the same vein, when I was touching on earlier, where I said when T-Mobile upgrades the site and puts N41 in there, if they don't do the rest of the work, if they don't add the backhaul, then the N41 antennas being on that macro don't change the end experience outside of changing my icon from saying 5G to 5G UC. Like, I'll give T-Mobile the fact
Do you
they've
get that
improved.
fuzzy feeling when you go from 5G to 5GE and it's faster?
I mean,
okay.
I'm just saying, like, I'll put it to you this way. When I'm going through my day, like if I'm taking a drive, right, and I'm not conscientiously trying to run speed tests, I'm just taking a drive down the road. I want to listen to Spotify, pull up Google Maps or whatever. I'm not looking at my phone icon. I'm just wondering, is it working right now? Yes? Great. Do you know who I end up having to always look and refresh airplane mode and do all kinds of things to because the simple things just break? It's T-Mobile. Like Verizon, I am not a lover of Verizon. I've made that very openly clear.
Dennis, in my market, you have that issue with you got to get on the Wi-Fi if you have the AT&T Elite Premium.
I mean, Pete, I'll real quick, Dave. Pete, let me just highlight the point real fast. Think about when you call me, right? Remember when you had me hop off a Wi-Fi calling with T-Mobile and instantly my audio became unusable? You couldn't understand.
Yeah, it's because your RF engineer is incompetent and probably married to a C-suite's daughter.
I'm just saying, man, like it's bad. It's bad, but I have plenty of capacity. If I run a speed test at my house, I get 150 to 300 down. I have UC. I get 150 to 300 down. But the call
I'll
can't.
get that on my essay in my basement.
Yeah, but I can't make a call. So what does that capacity do for me?
So honestly, I mean, I guess it's just your area, Dennis, because I've lived in two small towns in the state of Georgia. Well, two small towns in the state of Georgia, a somewhat medium-sized city in the state of Georgia, a city in Indiana, and a city in Minnesota that were in the top, top 100 definitely. And I have never experienced issues like you do. I have when I pull up apps, they load. When I pull up websites, they load. When I do things, everything loads up and I can make a call and don't have to think about whether it's going to break or not. It never does. And I've been in several cities through Greyhound because I would take the Greyhound places. So I've been through little towns and through big cities on T-Mobile and never had the kind of issues that you're having.
All I'm gonna say before we switch is that I have multiple people that have seen it in action when it fails. Sneed, you've been on calls. Pete, you've been on calls. I'm not pulling it out of my butt. It's really that bad.
Well, we'll kind of chalk it up to possibly just regional issues or whatever, site to site basis in the Berg. Let's go ahead and transition here. Neville was quoted as saying, "Our 5G leadership is significant and durable. We are here and we will be here for years to come." And he used the term, quote unquote, for reals. He said, for reals. He said, we're a leader in spectrum, a leader in coverage, and a leader in architecture. The only problem I have out of his whole entire statement, he said leader in coverage and leader in architecture. And I have to push back just on those two things. The rest of it I'm good with. 5G leadership, significant, durable. We are here, years to come. That's spectrum. I'm with all of that. When it comes to coverage and architecture, I think those are the two areas where they actually lie.
I would say if he said 5G coverage, he'd be correct.
Yeah.
But coverage in general, no.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, in 5G coverage, I would agree with that statement. In regular coverage, no.
But architecture, when I think of 5G architecture, I think of tower density. I think of CRAN. I think of I think of small cells. I think of high capacity fiber backhaul.
I
I
think
think of those
of
types of things.
Sneed. I think of testing the standalone network.
Standalone gives me PTSD.
Yeah, dude, standalone's a problem right now.
Man,
Like
I don't.
honestly, T-Mobile standalone is objectively the worst network experience I think I've experienced since back when like 3G, when AT&T acquired Singular and did the 3G upgrades. Like, it's that bad.
Now,
I haven't had many gripes with it other than the fact it's slower than not standalone.
you know what? I have been on standalone 24 hours a day, every day for months. That's the only thing I use. I force my phone to use it. And the only time I drop down to LTE is when I need to make a call. I can receive a call on standalone. I can send and receive text messages on standalone, and I can do data on standalone. The only thing I need to ever drop down to LTE for anymore is to make a call, to place an outgoing call. If I don't need to do that, I'm on standalone all the time.
I'm in that boat, and I've been in that boat with the exception of in Salt Lake City.
I never switch standalone off unless I need to make a call.
Anyway, as far as the leadership point, by the way, Sneed, I actually disagree with that phrase. If T-Mobile doesn't raise their capex and really start putting their nose to the grindstone, their 5G coverage lead comes into question. I mean, Verizon has the potential to catch up and exceed simply because Verizon has to upgrade cell sites. They don't have to actually build new ones, which is both more expensive and more difficult to do. It is much quicker just to go to an existing cell site and upgrade equipment. And thankfully, because Verizon was the Spectrum starved carrier, their network grid is already well established. And we already know for a fact that every single Band 66 site that's on that grid will get C-band upgrades, and it will be pretty fast because also a lot of those sites already have the backhaul ran, and it's just an easy flip of a switch to add the additional capacity necessary for the backhaul.
Didn't
We got a
T-Mobile
super
upgrade their
chat here
capex
from
again?
Santiago.
We got 2 super chats needs.
Okay, go ahead, Pete.
So Santiago with the pair flying through the air. Thank you, Santiago. And we got EMT837 going, does T-Mobile 5G extended range really count, though? This was a message directly under his $1 super chat. And I'd say the extended range does count because it's
Counts for
utilizing...
coverage,
Yeah. And it's the N71 is using a new radio modulation, and the LTE is using, the modulation after we did that LTE hack to 4G.
Yeah, it counts because it's using the 5G architecture. Like, that's how it's using the 5G standard. Therefore, it is 5G. It's not fast 5G, that's for sure, but it is 5G.
The best way to describe the extended range versus the band 71 is if you have 5 megahertz of band 71 on LTE, you are required to have 1 megahertz of that channel on either side of your broadcast be there for guard, so you're effectively receiving 3 megahertz connection. On the 5G, if the antenna hits certain FCC criteria or criterion, you can have that 5 megahertz channel take up the entire 5 megahertz without a guard band.
I will tell you guys that my experience with standalone 5G has been problematic. I think when I lose my 5G UC connection and it bumps down to N71, I feel like that's it moving into SA. And the shifting back and forth is killing my battery life on my Pixel A, my Pixel 6A.
That's my only complaint with standalone.
Yeah, I was going to say it's this constant switching that's kind of bothering me. And it's not so much the experience other than the fact that my battery life goes from like 75% to 65% in 1 hour of idle.
Well, I'll just say this. NSA N41 with like the LTE anchor, I can get 150 down, 20 up easy at my house. Galaxy S22 Ultra, the one that I have also running on T-Mobile, when it's on SA, gets like 1.71 down and 0.005 up. That's the standalone experience for me.
Let's actually talk about the 5G UC piece. Neville was quoted as saying 87% of our customer footprint currently has 5G UC in terms of their network experience. They're doing 1,000 upgrades per month, at least in the month of July. He was quoted as saying such. He said, we're going to continue to push the spectrum piece. He did not mention small cells. He didn't talk about tower density improvements. He didn't mention anything about backhaul or fiber, or any type of, partnerships or anything. So we're just going to assume that everything they mentioned in the previous quarters and investor conferences, that stuff all still holds true. They spoke to a 140 megahertz national average of 2.5, and that will be the reason they will dominate 5G for some time to come. That made me laugh because that was Mike Sievert, who is not a network guy at all. He's clearly, the CEO, the president of the company. For him to say that 140 megahertz of N41 will dominate the marketplace for some time to come, that's about as short-sighted as somebody saying, I just got paid $1,000 paycheck. I'm rich. And I'm going to go out and spend all my money.
All we'll ever need is 128 kilobytes of RAM.
Right, bro. I mean, it's just short-sighted,
I wouldn't, if I was T-Mobile, I wouldn't be resting on my laurels with having only 140 megahertz of N41 in
Pete,
most locations.
But they have more spectrum. I'm just saying, for him to stake the claim that 140 is enough for some time to come is
not. That's what I'm getting at. Especially when you consider come what is it, September, or not September, February or March, we're looking at them in a lot of markets putting up 140 to 200 more megahertz of mid-band 5G. Cadian chimes in with a $2 super chat saying he got 1 down and 54 up on N71 standalone with a peak at 200 up.
What?
Sounds like your RF team needs to go back to optimizations.
So on N71 SA, I get around 50 down and like 10 up is where I'm normally hovering.
So going back,
the best I found was 350 by 100.
Going back to the topic of the 140 megahertz, sometime to come, I guess it depends on what we're defining as the length. I actually believe that 140 megahertz of N41, assuming that tower density and everything else makes sense, should be fine for at least the next 3 years.
But they don't have small cells on any type of national scale.
Right. I'm saying like strictly macro based. Like if hypothetically speaking, we woke up tomorrow morning and T-Mobile did like a Verizon level of macro placement where there was like a macro every like 1 mile, right?
Yeah, but that's the problem, Dennis. I'm getting 2-3 megs on N41 on Edge cell.
Right.
Like I'm actually looking forward to getting on N71 at that point.
That's why I defined 1 mile, 1.5 miles, because that's typically where N41 tends to really suffer right after that point, right? So I'm saying, like, hypothetically speaking, if T-Mobile could somehow get their grid to be where there's a macro every mile or mile and a half, then 140 megahertz at N41 could suffice for the next 3 or so years without too much issue. Assuming that they do that and also get a little more sophisticated with their network management.
Hey, we got a super chat. This one is from Big Rubes. Appreciate you, brother. The sky's falling and Verizon pretends to be inflation proof. Great content, SMT for the win. Hello from Arizona. Appreciate it. So true, Rubes. They be fronting, they be capping. All right, Verizon selling wolf tickets per usual. Moving forward here, looking at this next piece. This was a quote from, I think it was, is it Callie Fields? The lady who's now the business person, business segment.
Cali
Yeah.
Collie, something like that.
Yeah, she said the network is getting us into offices, CTOs and CIOs. Business opportunities are coming. So that would be a huge win for them as they compete both with AT&T and especially Verizon, who always kills business, enterprise, small business, medium business, big business, you know. She mentioned cloud, IoT, edge compute, talking about standalone 5G on a nationwide scale. She mentioned the latency, the automotive, enterprise solutions. I just don't see them having it accomplished anything yet. I'm not saying that they can't in the future. I just don't see the proof of this. But they did show low-level business phone churn, which is very different. Verizon had like their worst business churn ever, and then T-Mobile had their best business churn ever. So they're kind of like moving in different directions. Home internet is still an excess capacity play. There's no plans on a dedicated QoS, no QCI in sight. That's one of the things that I can't stand about the T-Mobile home internet. They simply don't understand the importance of a dedicated QCI, QoS, commitment to some kind of a standard for speed and latency and all that. That's where I think, like, you see how Verizon indicates like business fixed wireless access, residential. Like T-Mobile doesn't want to do that because I don't think they're getting many businesses, and they even give them tiered usage. So like that's really my only bone to pick with their fixed wireless. They don't have a dedicated QCI, no QoS. I had the service. I used to get buffering video at 150 megabit per second speed test. So that's really that's the black eye on the home internet service, I suppose.
I mean, the T-Mobile home internet, I've said this before, it's more akin to a mobile hotspot with no data cap than it is a home internet replacement. Verizon's home internet makes more logical sense. It has features. And then for business customers specifically, it has guaranteed speeds. Like if you get the 100 by 10, you're getting the 100 by 10, like without question, because they basically guaranteed that bandwidth to you thanks to their network management practices. So, yeah, I mean, T-Mobile just needs to essentially invest into managing their network better, which a lot of that can actually be done without even having to touch cell sites. It's more software optimization at that point.
There are definitely things that I would like to see improved with the T-Mobile home internet, but I feel like a lot of the things that I would like to see improved are more technical things that the average everyday user either doesn't understand or doesn't really affect them that much, and so they're not calling for it.
All right, so this last piece, and Barry brings up an interesting solution for his business. They're going with an edge computing solution from Verizon in 2023 using millimeter wave. I think that's what like millimeter wave was made for. It was made for high capacity leverage situations. It was made for home internet fixed wireless, and it was made for enterprise grade solutions like the latency, the bandwidth, the speeds. It's just incredible.
With the edge computing, the low latency is really nice on those because in some places the edge computings are Kubernetes servers right on the node instead of just going to a central office. So
Yeah, I've always referred to millimeter wave as. Oh, go ahead, Dave.
Millimeter wave was made for Sneed to test on the lake in his boat.
Didn't
you say there was a note pointing out to the lake?
Yeah, Dave, there was one pointing out to the lake.
Dave, you missed something there.
Oh?
I'm going to be in that kayak with Sneed.
That's right, bro. We'll go kayaking and we'll test millimeter wave.
So, Sneed, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say millimeter wave is wireless fiber. I'll say it's close to the wireless cable.
Hell no, Dennis.
Except it's better than DOCSIS 4.
N41 is wireless cable. Millimeter wave is wireless fiber.
Today, millimeter wave is doing 300 uplink. Today, on a commercial network to residential and consumer wireless, that is wireless fiber, dog.
Dave, I agree. N41 is wireless cable.
Like
that's
mid-band,
DOCSIS 4 right there.
Mid-band is wireless cable. Millimeter wave is wireless fiber.
I don't know how you could say that. DOCSIS 4 is going to be offering symmetrical speeds.
Whenever that comes around in 25 years.
Yeah,
I mean, we're already
tell me
seeing
2040.
we're already seeing mid splits from different cable operators and seeing increased upload speeds being offered in Georgia. I think we talked about out where you're at, Pete. They offered a new 2 gig down and 200 meg up tier. Over in
Yeah, but get back to me in
type 1 if you
2040.
have DOCSIS 4, type 2 if you don't. Type 1 if you have DOCSIS 4, type 2 if you don't.
Type
it's
F
DOCSIS
if you
3,
hate cable.
It's DOCSIS 3.1 that they're doing these extra uploads on. It's just a mid split.
Like, I'd be curious if Sneed would run like a community poll for like a week on his channel. How many people have DOCSIS 4?
Hold up, Sneed. I have a better idea. Sneed, do a vote.
You want me to do a poll in the live chat?
Yeah.
Listen, I'm willing to bet you that I'm willing to bet you we see symmetrical upload speeds offered by cable operators before we see symmetrical uplink come from millimeter wave.
All
That's
right, Pete,
my bet.
Build the poll for me. What's the question?
We got one. I got the DOCSIS 3.1.
No. You need to word the question for me. I need to ask a question.
Okay. What type of cable connection do you have? Okay.
The answer is DOCSIS 3.1 for everyone.
It's one DOCSIS 3.1 or 3.1e. 2 is DOCSIS 4. The third option is screw cable.
Well, I can already answer your poll. 100% is going to be DOCSIS 3.1.
Okay, then. When DOCSIS 4 becomes a thing, then we can talk about DOCSIS 4.
Okay, right. So the first option is 3 family. So if your 3.0 include DOCSIS 3.
Wait, is it 3.1 or 3.1e?
Yeah, just go with 3.1 or 3.1e, and if they're on 3.0, just say 3.1.
Okay. All right, it's up. Poll is up. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, inflation and financial stuff. We'll just close it out with this. This is the boring stuff. All right, we heard on, I think it was CNBC, whatever that walk on the street is with Kramer. You know the guy. Well, I'm trying to help you save money.
Jim Kramer, yep.
Wait. He hasn't had a heart attack yet? Also,
no, dude is kicking strong, bro. You believe it?
I think he cut back on the snake venom from his cocktail.
Okay, so here's where things get a little murky, and this is where I think Eugene is selling wolf tickets. He was quoted as saying, "We have insulation. We have existing contracts, equipment contracts." Okay, so does Verizon and so does AT&T. So, no, they don't have insulation from inflation. They're dealing with the same pressures. They're just price locked from the DOJ and the merger concessions. He just didn't want to say it. He wants to look like he's saving the world, like he's some kind of avenger. But he's selling wolf tickets. The price lock is a spin on the merger restrictions for 3 years of price commitments, and he can't do anything with pricing. So they're nickel and diming customers with the SIM fee, the upgrade fee increase. I mean, heck, just today they did a late fee increase. So if you're not on auto pay and you miss your payment or something, instead of paying a $5 late fee, you're going to pay a $7 late fee.
Hey, Sneed.
Oh, buy your phone from Best Buy or Apple. Don't pay your bills late, and buy a SIM from eBay.
Yeah, but don't you think you're more than likely today to have a late month due to the inflationary environment, working class, citizens? I think this is very insensitive for T-Mobile to do this now.
Yeah.
Sneed. Most of the time, they will not give you a late fee if you call them and say, "Hey,
I know that.
So
I know that. I know how good the T-Mobile customer care can be. I'm just saying, why introduce this and bring this to the table right now?
Okay, I'm going to approach this from a bit of a position of privilege, and I'm just going to go ahead and say that right offhand before I even talk. But my thought is add $5 extra to your bill every month, because then by doing that, you eventually get to the point where if you can't pay a payment right on time or whatever, you have an extra amount of money sitting there that's just there so that it can be used. Like I have my phone bill paid out a year in advance just so that I can avoid any kind of auto pay issues or credit card issues. Or if my credit card doesn't charge for some stupid reason because the bank declines it, I don't have to worry about it.
So that's how you run into problems with billing. Like, billers don't like having super long pauses.
Balances, right?
Yeah. Like, Dave, I'm gonna bet you at some point something's gonna happen where that credit goes bye-bye, and you're gonna be like, WTF happened to my money? And you're gonna talk to the customer service rep that's over in like Timbuktu, and they're gonna be like, why'd you pay it like this?
Hey, big shout out to
Timbuktu,
Shame, another super chat. He said, Dennis, when DOCSIS 4.0 is eventually out, we'll already have millimeter wave with symmetrical speeds.
Timbuktu is francophone. They won't service the U.S.
Let's see here, some other stuff.
Optimum has a $30 late fee, and they're your internet company.
They're
Ow.
horrible. They're the worst.
That's painful. Ouch.
Yeah, that's rough, bro.
Every company has a late fee.
That's like those freaking overdraft fees at banks that are like $25 per transaction or something.
Hey, for the investors out there, service revenue at T-Mobile is up 1.3%. AT&T is up 1.9%. Verizon is up 0.3%. T-Mobile is doing share buybacks in 2023 and 2024, and they said that they got some kind of a good thing going on with Dish. They didn't divulge any details, but whatever.
I think we should short circuit any share buybacks. That does not improve the company.
I agree. T-Mobile does not need to be wasting their very limited free cash flow on share buybacks, and should instead be putting that money aside for spectrum purchases. Like,
I agree.
Cash flow is like $1.3 billion.
I agree. Put it back for CapEx or spectrum.
My stock price went up $5 today. They should not be doing buybacks.
Wait, I didn't hear what Sneed said.
Oh, the buybacks?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're doing buybacks in 2023 and 2024.
No, but you said something after I said that.
The stock price of T-Mobile has a $190 to $200 target, so they're probably wanting to buy them while they're still like sub $170.
Yeah, but owning the stock doesn't do it. I don't understand what that does for the company.
Less stocks mean the shareholder, like, say for example, there's 10 shares of the company and I own one of them. I own 10% of the company. If they distribute 10 more shares, I now own one share out of 20. So therefore, I'm owning much less of the company. You see what I'm saying? I'm going from 10% ownership to 5.
Share buybacks enrich the
stockholders.
The not the stockholders, but the long-term equity holders. So the old guard with the most stock, that enriches how much their worth is in stock, and then since T-Mobile doesn't give a dividend, they can actually give the fact that they inflated the stock value of the buyback as collateral for loans, making them even more money. Stock buybacks are not good for companies. They're good for the people with old stock.
Yeah, and it's also good for the people who want to own stock in the company. You know, you want to make all shareholders attracted to your company.
Yes,
so
by making
you can do that with dividends. You could do it with stock buyback.
Yeah, stock buybacks are like a dividend that doesn't happen as often.
Yeah, but the stock buyback, the people who make the money from the buyback are the most recent to buy the stock, and they might just want to hold on to the stock because they want to support the company.
The only problem I have is you can't do share buybacks if you don't have free cash flow. That's all I'm going to say with that, because when I look at Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile, T-Mobile has the least amount of free cash flow. Simple as that. So them talking about share buybacks just doesn't make sense from that respect.
Well, considering that we're on the brink of a so-called recession at the moment, companies shouldn't be doing stock buybacks. They should be putting money aside so that way if things do get tight and they can't get the same access to low-cost loans, they have the money to weather the storm for their continued investments. And if they want to raise the stock value and attract stock investors, they should be focusing on the crux and core of the business to expand revenue streams and increase customer growth. and you can only do that by investing in the network.
Everybody needs a rainy day fund, including these companies.
I mean, just look at the airlines. Look at the airlines.
But the lines are getting paid every month. Like, nobody disconnects their line of service. It is the most resilient thing. Electricity, people's electric bills, and smartphones are the number one and number two paid bills every month. They're the first things that people pay, even before car payments, even before house payments, even before rent. People pay their electric and people pay their smartphone service.
You're right. But you know what else is also pretty resilient? Airline companies, because people still have to travel. And they still had to get a freaking bailout because they did stock buybacks and had no money put aside for whenever the pandemic hit.
They shouldn't have been paying all those dividends.
It's freaking 2008 all over again. Too big to fail.
So T-Mobile shouldn't be doing stock buybacks right now.
Nope. I agree.
All right, good stuff, guys. We destroyed the T-Mobile earnings call. We covered everything, absolutely everything.
No,
and big shout out to Chain. Thanks for another super chat, my friend.
We missed the fact that T-Mobile said that they had 55 to 60% of traffic on their 5G network now.
Oh, so it's up about 5%. I think at the last investor conference they were at 50.
Yep.
Okay.
And I was talking with Archie Mobile earlier today, and I pointed out that that tracks. If you think about it, that's about the percentage of people on 5G phones with my phone plan.
What's up, Big Term? Good to see you, man. Let's go ahead and get to this next topic. We'll transition. Link in the live chat for those that are here in the live, and then for the replay crew, it's in the show notes. This is from Verizon. On the prepaid side, get Disney Plus for 6 months on us with Verizon Prepaid unlimited plans. All right, so what I want to mention, I did the video on it. It's on the channel, so you guys can watch it and listen to my take on it. But what it is you're getting a 6-month subscription valued at $7.99 per month. So after the 6 months of usage, if you want to keep it, that's how much you'll be paying. So Disney Plus has all the Pixar stuff, Marvel, Star Wars, Nat Geographic, Lego Star Wars, all the new releases for Marvel and all of that. It's nice. I get it. But it's only going to be attached to the upper two tiers of the prepaid plan. So I think it's a $75 unlimited plan, and there's a $65. I'm just looking for the deets on this real quick. I think that's what it was. Anyways, nobody wants this. There is not a single prepaid customer on Verizon Prepaid that wanted this, asked for this, was dying for it. I have a couple of theories. Well, I should say hypotheses. Number one, Disney Plus is not doing anything for Verizon anymore. And the reason I can prove this is previously Verizon only treated the premium postpaid accounts to get this. Now they're giving it to their quote-unquote premium prepaid customers. That is unheard of. They never would have did this 2 years ago. They must think somehow, some way this is going to help their prepaid losses. They're losing TracFone customers who couldn't care a lick about Disney Plus on their wireless service. So this is a joke. It's going to be ineffective. It's not going to do anything for anyone. And nobody was asking for this. The second piece to this is you're willing to give people a $7.99 value to a prepaid plan, but yet and still, you won't give them ultra wideband on either of their two entry-level postpaid plans. That is ridiculous. Verizon has so many strange ways of looking at the marketplace.
Thank you.
They don't understand the customer. They don't understand the market. They don't understand why they're not growing. And if they do understand why they're not growing, they're not showing it and it's not apparent. I would say that the Verizon management team, including the CEO, Hans Vestberg, is so disconnected from the reality that is the marketplace. They're like you're in a room by themselves. I wouldn't even want to be a fly on the wall in those meetings because the only thing they could think about is upselling the premium customer. But what they don't understand is they're pricing people out of prepaid and they're pricing people out of entry-level unlimited plans. They structured their new Welcome Unlimited to make people not even want it. So what did you make it for? They want to get foot traffic in the stores, and then they want to upsell people. I just think that things are going to have to get so bad at Verizon where they can't even give away this stuff because people just don't even look their way. Like, nobody's even like, oh, I'm shopping around for a new carrier, I'm going to go to Verizon. No, people just automatically assume they're too expensive. They're not competitive. That's it. They're starting at AT&T, they're starting at T-Mobile, they're looking at MVNO. I mean, I hear a lot of people are now moving to cable, so it's like we look at the numbers that lines up. This is not going to change anything. This is a dumb move that will have no impact. Dennis, go ahead.
I think it's cool, I guess, that Verizon added the perk, but I agree with you. It's not going to do anything to get someone to switch to that plan who is looking around in the prepaid space, because prepaid customers tend to be more price sensitive customers. And while perks are like cherries on top, 6 months of $7.99 value doesn't make up the difference of a $15 cost difference between that plan and, say, something like US Mobile, which is arguably a better plan anyway to begin with. So yeah. And then as far as the postpaid nuts and bolts go, there is a reason for the welcome plan existing. I don't love the reason, but the reason is to get foot traffic. It's a page out of Cable's book. Cable does this all the time. Ads advertising new plans as low as $20 a month or $10 a month just to get you to walk in or call in for upselling. I think it's stupid that Verizon isn't including Ultrawide on every single plan that exists for them. But that's a whole other side tangent, and I digress. TLDR, though, Verizon is definitely making decisions that are questionable. I don't think it's because they don't understand the market per se. I think it's that Verizon is making decisions that at the end of the day are ultimately in Verizon's best interest, because I don't know if they necessarily really care about raw number growth and are more focused on just straight up ARPU at the moment.
Go ahead, Dave, jump in.
That's going to come back to bite them in the butt. I feel like it would take a lot for this to occur. I'll admit that. But I feel like if Verizon doesn't change and doesn't wake up and smell the bacon, or wake up and smell the coffee, as Tyrone from Tech Life said, I think that Verizon could end up like Sprint. I mean, at the end there, nobody wanted Sprint because their network sucked. And if Verizon keeps this mess up, no one's going to look at Verizon because they're all going to think, oh, Verizon's too expensive to worry about. Let me go to AT&T or let me go to T-Mobile. I'm not even going to look at Verizon because it's too dang expensive, and I know it. Admittedly, that's a long shot, and that would take a very long time, and I don't think that'll happen. I think they'll correct before then. But the ship is headed for the iceberg.
I disagree. I hard disagree, because I'm going to talk about everybody's most favorite industry, cable, for a moment. People said the same thing about cable for the longest time, and it's been 20 years ongoing, and cable's doing just fine, still getting customers, right? They're still getting customers. Even right now, they're still getting customers and posting record profits, right?
Well, that's why I said I thought it would take a long time.
Verizon's in that same boat. Like, it would take... The wireless market is super mature, and there's not a lot of options. And people are going to find reasons to switch around for one reason or another, because of phone deals, whatever. And there's always going to be someone that's willing to buy the more premium plan for a premium network. For Verizon to be in as bad a shape as you're pointing, Verizon would literally have to somehow destroy their network. Like, the existing network that they've already built up over the course of the years would literally have to regress, and they'd have to lose cell sites for that level of Sprint-esque nature to occur. And pricing is one of the easiest things that can be adjusted. Building a network is the most difficult thing, as is presented by T-Mobile. They're still having a hard time changing people's perception on network reliability, despite the network being better than where it was, right? So it would take a very long time for that to happen. There's no way that happens. The market, there's just not enough competition for that to happen.
All right, guys. I didn't want to spend too much time on this. I don't know, Pete. Did you want to chime in on the Disney Plus?
Want to chime in two things. First off, Giuseppe Jimmy chimes in with a $2 super chat that we'll get to after my comment, saying which carrier has most brand enthusiasts. My comment with Verizon Prepaid is this. You said in your video the 6 month Disney Plus is available to the $65 and $75 lines. They have a $50 unlimited line that doesn't have the ultra wideband, but it's $15 cheaper than the cheapest line they're including the 6 month promo on. So if you want Disney Plus and you want Verizon Prepaid and you don't care about the ultra wideband, or you don't have access to it, this obviously is them pulling the wool over your eyes in that respect. And that's my piece. It's not a good deal, and I don't think they're going to attract anyone except for, the gullible people they want to upsell anyway.
And for the super chat from Giuseppe Jimmy, thanks for the super chat. Which carrier has the most brand evangelist? I mean, I would say probably because of John Ledger and the whole like T-Mobile movement, the uncarrier movement. I would say T-Mobile. I also see that a lot of people run to defend them for a lot of things that they do wrong, which that's the one thing I don't like about, defending corporations, is when corporations do things that are, suspect to consumer, anti-consumer. I think they need to be called out. So having brand loyalty is going to force you to have to violate the brand in order to question them. So you got to get out of your feelings to actually do that. So, I mean, I see that more oftentimes as the case with that brand. I don't really see it much from AT&T. I mean, we do see it. I don't see it much from Verizon either, but we see it occasionally. It's just not, it's not as prevalent. I think the John Ledger thing, like the Dumb and Dumber, the uncarrier, the brand, the colors, the CEO, all that created a big stir for a long time, and it got people's attention. And just I find it unusual that some people attach their like identity to a brand, and that can be kind of weird to me, I think.
I think I agree with you that T-Mobile definitely has the most. I'd put Verizon kind of up there to the same extent. AT&T is pretty much non-existent. And the reason why I put Verizon up there is there are a lot of people that will defend Verizon as having the absolute most premium network 24/7 around the clock, even if it's not necessarily the case in all given areas. Like when we talked about like the band 13 only site problem, for example, right? Like there are people that ride and die by Verizon the same way people try to defend T-Mobile's very lackluster performance for what they have.
The only thing I don't call T-Mobile out on are the data breach things, because during the credit reporting breaches, I lost the account information for my Verizon and AT&T plans on top of the same information that T-Mobile had. So all industries need to fix that breaching stuff. Hey, Sneed Seppi chimed in with another super chat.
Oh, thanks, Giuseppe Jimmy. Appreciate it, man.
He's wondering if we think in the coming years there will be a lot of word of mouth advertising for T-Mobile.
I mean, I think if that hasn't already happened a lot, I mean, it should be happening. Most people are running to tell everyone, hey, T-Mobile's really good here. It's improved a lot. You want to save some money, get on this network. It's pretty good. You might have more capacity than Verizon or AT&T. Try it. What's the harm in giving it a shot?
Hey, Sneed.
Yes, sir.
Does that CNET article say Sprint?
It does.
What the hell is this carrier named Sprint?
I know, man. They actually brought up Sprint. Thanks for those super chats, Giuseppe, and everybody else. Thank you. 3G service going extinct. We asked T-Mobile, Verizon, Sprint what they're doing about it. All right, so Sprint 3G is gone. So let's make this T-Mobile, Verizon, and AT&T. Why didn't they put AT&T there? Because they shut it down, maybe? I don't know. This brings up the question. 3G is gone, at least in the US. It continues in Europe and a lot of places, and Asia and the Middle East and Africa and pretty much everywhere else, right? When do you guys see the 4G LTE sunset happening? Do you guys see it happening during this decade, meaning between now and 2029? Or do you see it happening in the next decade?
2030. Got so many people who are still pissed off about their 3G disappearing, and they wanted to kill both T-Mobile and Verizon for getting rid of their 3G phones. And they're going to cling on to their LTE flip phone as long as they can.
So we've touched on this topic. I'm 100% positive before, and my stance still remains the same in that it depends on how readily available more spectrum gets released for the carriers to deploy on 5G. If spectrum stays very limited, then I see the carriers being more aggressive and more quick to transition customers off of LTE and to eventually shut it down quicker. Just because that's what would be required to meet future demand needs. So in that scenario, I would see it shutting down. It has the potential to shut down in this decade, but realistically, I don't see it happening until like 2035 because I do have the belief that there's going to be enough spectrum available for the carriers to deploy their 5G networks as needed. And honestly, there's also the very high probable chance that there's no LTE shutdown at all. And what ends up happening is more of a LTE spectrum gets reformed and like 5 megahertz slices get left on for LTE alone to maintain like legacy stuff, similar to what happened with 2G/1X. T-Mobile used their guard bands on PCS to keep 2G going still to this day for like, IoT devices, and Verizon did something similar for the longest time, and that lasted for like 25, 30 years. So it just depends. But I'm gonna say 90% chance it doesn't happen in this decade because I have the belief that enough spectrum will be allocated for the carriers.
Yeah, I got them doing it in like 10 years.
My thought is okay.
I was gonna say 2035 the latest, earliest maybe 2032. I don't know, something like that.
See, I was thinking 2030, and the reason I was thinking that is because I honestly don't think they're going to let LTE survive as long as 3G did. I think they wanted to kill 3G freaking 4 or 5 years ago, and just couldn't do it because of all these people. And I think that with LTE, I think they're just going to say to HE hockey stick with it, if you don't upgrade, we're killing it, and you just won't have service until you upgrade your phone. So have fun.
Yeah, but
I honestly think it's going to happen.
The FCC,
go ahead.
The FCC has the same opinion as Dave. They don't want the transition to newer technologies to be drawn out longer than, reasonable. There's still a significant, by significant I mean greater than 20,000 people who are still fighting their 3G phone because they're afraid of 4G giving them the cancers.
Hey, big shout out to RF Waves who said, "Nope, we got 20 more years of LTE." That's where he stands. Here's a super chat from Anwad. Appreciate the super chat. Is the FirstNet coverage the same as AT&T coverage? If so, does that mean AT&T has the largest coverage in the country? New coverage king. Just to clarify the terminology there, FirstNet is built and operated by AT&T. It has its own network core. It's got a dedicated band of spectrum, a 10 by 10 slice of band 14 that is available, primarily for first responders, agencies on the FirstNet, accounts. But it is also available for AT&T customers to use as well. So, yeah, FirstNet coverage and AT&T coverage are one and the same, essentially, when it comes to coverage. Now, are they the coverage king? A lot of people out west will tell you no. Verizon is still the king out west. A lot of people will tell you that AT&T has as good a coverage as Verizon. And in some instances, because of their newly upgraded sites, because of FirstNet, oftentimes it's a fast version of Verizon, right? Sites within the same places, but with upgrades, and it's much faster and a much better experience. So that's kind of how I look at FirstNet. We can sit here and argue about like miles covered, and a lot of people will tell you that AT&T's FirstNet has more miles covered than Verizon. I just can't figure out why more people don't leave the Verizon network then. So
I mean, so there's the facts, like square mileage covered, which is what I would argue being coverage king, right? Like if we're just talking about coverage, that goes to AT&T. That's just a fact. Like they surpassed Verizon because Verizon hasn't announced anything in years, and the last announcement put AT&T above as far as square miles of the country covered. As far as your second point, Sneed, why do people not leave Verizon? It's because consumers aren't rational.
no, not consumer. I'm talking business, enterprise, government, first responder.
Right.
Why do they go to FirstNet and then go back to Verizon?
Right. Humans aren't rational. Businesses, enterprises, corporations are made up of people, and the decision makers don't make necessarily rational decisions. It's the same to the same extent. It's the same reason why AMD had such a hard time for years now, despite Epic being significantly better CPUs for servers and more affordable. People still end up doing another round of Intel purchases back when Intel was really hard stuck on that 14 nanometer process. Same thing with like the whole Verizon situation, right? Like even if AT&T has the better coverage, the decision makers are going to be like, well, Verizon has been doing me well enough, so just because you added coverage in Timbuktu, it doesn't make me want to change to you, if that makes sense.
No. What I'm saying is why do first responders and agencies go to FirstNet and then churn out and go back to Verizon?
Well, that could be because of a million things. Maybe it's pricing. Maybe it's bad customer service.
Maybe they're used to being throttled.
Yeah, maybe they really love that hard Verizon throttling, like how Verizon throttled first responders out in California during the forest fires over in California and
We're
Washington.
never going to let them live that one down. If
Never.
Verizon is listening, that was like a major dick move.
That was the worst. I remember reporting that on my channel back in like 2016.
And you remember how spicy I got in the comments?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't T-Mobile also offering, free access to first responders? And they're not even biting on T-Mobile. So the question is, what is Verizon's special sauce? And can they keep profit by giving throttled contracts to first responders?
RF Wave says poor coverage. AT&T's FirstNet doesn't cut it. Yep. So it's hard to be the coverage king if people are questioning the coverage.
and you get 128 kilobits a second, and you get 128 kilobits a second.
You get 64. So EMT837 says, I have FirstNet and switched to Verizon due to coverage in my area, but I went back to FirstNet, course, with the cheaper service and truly unlimited benefits like unlimited hotspot. EMT, have you looked into the T-Mobile one? If you're a actual EMT, they might just give you a free line
Yeah, I think
for
they
you to
do
try.
actually. Yeah. Thanks,
So,
Andy. Appreciate you, man.
you could try T-Mobile and keep the FirstNet, and if T-Mobile works for you, you can save money there. We got another super chat from Green 9227 saying, near where I live, the tower site that Verizon has, they removed the 3G gear and got an N77 upgrade, delivering over 700 megs a second on the down and about 60 up. Some nice stuff, Green. And sorry for paraphrasing.
Appreciate you, Green. Thank you, man. Hey, guys, we covered a lot of stuff. Anything else for the good of the order?
No, I'm good.
I got something.
Oh, you got something, Pete? Go ahead.
We put up a poll 35 minutes ago and it was 107 votes.
Oh,
You want to talk about that one?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm about to end it. There we go.
Tell Sneed to get a Mastodon.
It's up. What type of cable connection do you have? Screw cable, 52%. DOCSIS 3.1 or 3.1e, 40%. And then DOCSIS 4.0, 7%. 107 votes.
Well, apparently someone has DOCSIS 4.0, even though I know it doesn't actually exist as far as residential live use goes.
It might be business, or the cable company could be lying like they always do.
Man,
it's the cable company. It's the employees of the cable company. Like what's his name on the community tech channel podcast or whatever. He's the cable installer. I can't think of his name right offhand, but it's him since he's employed by the cable company. He uses DOCSIS 4.0.
Well, I'm just gonna point out something real quick here. You had basically a 50-50 split of people that were saying cable and screw cable, and also I just also want to call out something more important here, and that is you talked about cable always lying. All telecom companies lie.
Facts.
Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile are not saints. I don't get it.
Preach,
if you're gonna go with the devil that actually works and you don't have to deal with.
Yeah, but people don't want to deal with cable. They want fixed wireless, bro.
I mean, buy fixed wireless, but buy fixed wireless knowing you're buying the objectively inferior product.
This is just going to die on this hill.
I've said it before. T-Mobile Home Internet is not a home internet replacement. It is a glorified mobile hotspot that has unlimited data at the lowest QCI.
Hey,
yeah,
Dave,
but tell that to the 550,000 people who just signed up for it, man.
Hey, Dave, do you want to take a broadsword and chase after Dennis with me?
Yeah, sure. Dude, I'm telling you, people want T-Mobile Home Internet. I'm telling you.
People want another option. No rational person would choose to have T-Mobile Home Internet over cable or fiber from a service standpoint.
So, Dennis, MS is spinning truth based on the cable company. The closest cable company in his area is doing DOCSIS 5.
He's joking.
So,
just
Dennis,
like cable being good is a joke.
What you're telling me, Dennis, is that I am not a rational human being.
Dave, I've talked to you in great depth. I know some of the concerns or some of the decisions and making you want to buy the T-Mobile Internet from the Twitter Spaces are valid in your buying power, but they're not rational. Like you mentioned, your biggest reason for going with T-Mobile Internet is because you refuse to go with a provider that has a data cap. But then I talked to you about your data usage, which is 150 gigs, and the data cap's 1.2 terabytes. That's not a rational decision because you're not even using 10% of the cap. Like, that was your decision that you told me for why you invested in T-Mobile Home Internet specifically, if I recall our conversation, because you didn't
but
like
just
data caps.
Just like how you invest in stocks of companies that you believe in, like I seriously think that you should invest in stocks of companies you believe in. I think you should put your money where you want to see the world go. So like you should be the change you want to see in the world, and the change I'd like to see in the world is no more freaking data caps.
Right, but the statement here was picking the better service, right? Objectively the better service, right? Like which one has the better uptime, better performance, XYZ like factors, right? Every single one of those checkboxes goes to cable over the T-Mobile fixed wireless. Go ahead.
We got Enwa saying Dennis is right. People aren't rational, including Enwar. I'd rather deal with a worse ISP such as fixed wireless to stop dealing with Comcast. And that's what people are doing.
And I'm literally verbally saying that. Like I'm saying people don't leave cable because cable is the worst service. People leave cable because they want another option regardless of what it is.
People are leaving cable because when they have to unplug their modem 4 times a day and then they call their ISP puts them on hold for an hour, drops their call, and 3 weeks later when they finally get to them, the cable ISP who is leasing them that modem says, "Sucks to be you, user error."
People have the same issues with Verizon Fios, though. Verizon Fios, you call them for a technician, you're scheduling out at least 3 weeks out.
And this is why the fixed wireless is so popular.
But Verizon Fios is a fiber product. Is what my point being here is that people, and I said this verbally, we're just dancing around the same sentence. People just want another option. It's not that the service is bad. The service is objectively better. We could use the same thing with Fios. Fiber is fiber. It's better than T-Mobile's fixed wireless. People will still leave Verizon because they hate Verizon for different reasons, right? That's not the rational decision.
You're lucky with your Fios. They actually fixed it. What about that guy who's going to get it fixed in April because it froze after breaking?
You're talking about the broken node that I showed the Sneed on FaceTime?
Yeah, and the fact that they coil it, which is bad for the attenuation.
Cable is like I could get Comcast here. But if I bought Comcast, my speeds would be reduced. Like I get 200 megs a second here on my T-Mobile Home Internet. If I bought Comcast, which I could do right now, it would take them like 2 weeks to mail me the equipment, and I would be paying the same price for 50 megs.
It wouldn't take 2 weeks to mail the equipment. It's 3 to 5 days standard shipping.
My speeds would go down. And I'd have a data cap.
And you could pick it up in store.
PA speed testing says people want plug and play and ease of use. They actually do like that. I've heard of people not wanting anyone at their house doing installations.
Right, and you can do that with cable. I mean, most houses are already pre-wired for cable, so literally when you want to order it, you don't have to talk to a person. You go online, you order your service that you want, and then do self-install, and it gives you the option to either pick it up at your nearest store right then and there, or you can have it shipped to you. Standard shipping is free, 3 to 5 business days, usually comes within 3, and bada bing, bada boom, you have your gateway, you plug it in and use the app.
So that you're saying people are looking for reasons to hate cable.
I feel like
I'm saying, look, it's fine to hate a company. I hate Verizon. I have vehemently said that now for at least 2 years, that I don't like Verizon as a company. That being said, I can acknowledge and deal with the fact that Verizon is a crap company because they are the fiber provider, right? I'm going to get fiber from them because it offers the symmetric speeds, and I'll let them slam my head multiple times through a door to get them to fix it and to get it to work because fiber is the gold standard, right? Regardless of who it comes from. If we can get it working like it's supposed to, it can be great, right?
Yeah.
In the same vein, cable is a fine service. It provides better bandwidth than your DSL, your satellite, or fixed wireless in the current day. And the same way that you give me crap about talking about the future, the current version of fixed wireless at this moment is not better than what cable can provide from a performance objective standpoint, from a latency, download speed options, or uplink. And to Dave's point about the 50 meg, that's you choosing to buy the absolute cheapest possible tier in your area. You can get
that's
faster
him
on
choosing
cable.
the $50 plan.
That's me choosing the $50 plan, which is what I pay now.
Also,
that's me not changing my price at all.
$50 with it. So first off, new customer promo.
Also,
all
Dennis,
across, $50 should get you
taxes and fees not included on that cable. He's going to be paying $54.
There's no taxes or fees on internet unless you're renting a gateway, and that's only if the gateway is not included in the price of the cable.
$64 then.
Well, their new promos, as we talked about on this show, include the modem rental. So that's a thing. There's no contracts. It's a 2-year price lock, and $50 gets you 300 by 10.
No. When I checked,
actually it's 40. But
I checked, and to get cable was $30 a month for the thing, which is fine. And then you add the $14 modem rental, unless you want to go out and buy the $300 modem for the one service for Comcast. And if you ever move, you can't use that same modem again in a different area because they
That's
don't
not true.
Work.
You can move those modems. I've done it, as long as they're not locked by carrier. Also, we got 2 super chats in.
Go ahead.
And we're saying that anecdotal, though, across the board, cable is still superior technology, no matter how much we want to burn down Comcast.
And I feel like people want wireless tech. I mean, we went from having landlines to having cell phones. Who uses landlines anymore? Anybody over 80?
Wireless cable.
All right, Steve, do you want wireless over fiber?
No.
Pete, do you want wireless over fiber?
No, I'm keeping my fiber. But before we get into that, $10 super chat from Pete Fox saying Comcast built out in my neighborhood. AT&T fiber was only option before Comcast ran the coax. In the process, cut half the fiber lines. Uptake in the neighborhood so far, 0.
That's random. Why wouldn't they install fiber? That's weird.
Now, the next question is that Dennis asked you that if you wanted to get rid of your cable, your fiber, do you want to plug your laptop into the Wi-Fi into the router via Ethernet?
No.
Do you want to charge your phone with a cable, or would you rather do it on a little pad or wirelessly?
I like the concept of wireless charging, but it's got to get more efficient. Yeah, I guess.
Do you want to charge your electric car? Would you rather pull up on top of a little wireless charging pad or plug the dang thing in the rain?
That would be cool to pull up on a charging pad. That would be pretty damn cool.
Wonder if Apple would take that one.
People want some wireless things.
But let me expand on that. Do you want your charging to take an extra 2 hours because you're doing it wirelessly, or would you rather plug it into a cable and be charged up to 50% in like literally 15 minutes?
Thanks, Pete. Appreciate the super chat.
Sneed.
No, I'm with you, bro. Give me the most effective, efficient way of charging.
All right. Would you rather have ping spikes while you're trying to do your gaming online, or have a reliable Ethernet connection so that your ping is a nice, stable, consistent connection?
Always with the Ethernet, bro. Latency.
For your car charging example, would you rather be able to get going at the gas station in 15 minutes and be charged up with like 200 miles of capacity because you plugged it in with a hard pump? Or would you rather sit on a wireless pad for a whole day waiting for your car to charge to full?
No, I mean, you go with the most effective way, man. I get it.
All right. So, like, wireless is cool. Wireless, it can be convenient. But you're sacrificing. There's always a trade-off for one form of convenience over the other. And I can tell you right now that people would rather have the product that is most reliable and works, and that's always going to come in the form of either fiber is the most reliable, period, hardwired. No one that is rational is going to trade fiber for a wireless product.
I agree.
Cable is the next best thing to fiber that people can get access to, and if you're being rational, it is the second best option. Fixed wireless is third. And then you get satellite with Starlink at fourth, and or DSL.
So in that case, Dennis, what you need to do is you need to give up your cell phone and you need to go to a landline, because a landline is more reliable than a cell phone, because it's going to have a dedicated connection to the POTS system so that you can always make a phone call.
So we're talking about the house, right? Remember how I said there's trade-offs? When I'm on the go, that is a different conversation. Wireless networks are great for when you're not at the house, but if you're in a stationary spot, your house, there is no reason to not have the wired solution to that house. And if you want wireless connectivity inside the home, that's why Wi-Fi and routers
but
exist.
Dennis, here's the thing. T-Mobile spoke about fixed wireless access numbers, specifically the home internet numbers. The T-Mobile home internet service has better downlink average than fixed broadband as a whole in this entire
T-Mobile's
country.
download average is 100 meg.
Yeah, that's faster than the fixed home broadband average in the country.
Based off of what exactly? Because
All
ookla,
connections in the
FCC,
US.
FCC, and everything else put the average in America at somewhere like 200 meg.
Oh, I don't know. They
said
that
they said cable. They specifically said that it was better than
the
cable.
average cable connection in the US is something like 200 meg down and like 10 up.
I figured it was DSL that was bringing down the fixed broadband average.
Yeah, the average connection in the US for cable is something like 200 and something down and like 10 up. That's the average cable connection in the US. Average T-Mobile fixed wireless per T-Mobile that they had to lower and make a range is 100 by like 10.
Did anybody find it odd that 2/3 of T-Mobile's fixed wireless subscribers are coming from urban and suburban?
But that kind of reinforces Dennis's point. It reinforces that it's not the technology that they're leaving for. It's explosive pricing in most instances. Maybe some disgruntled customer care issues, maybe. You know.
I'll just say this. Based off of all the awesome people in the community info that I've been able to see, I can tell you with factual confidence that 80% of people that disconnect from Comcast specifically are doing it because of pricing, essentially, some form of billing flavored pricing. And another fun statistic that is worth mentioning is that the vast majority of those customers who do leave Comcast statistically also end up returning back to Comcast within 90 days. Only like 5 to 10% are leaving for an actual other provider and not returning within 90 days.
Those are the diehards, right, Dennis?
Those are the people that are like diehard hating to hate, basically.
I'm going to say, with the amount of F words I gave Comcast and C words and comparisons to a European leader who committed suicide in the 40s, I don't think they want me back.
Hey guys, we got to end the show. I want to thank the all the super chats. Green at the buzzer, the super chat thoughts on a portless phone. I will gladly take a portless phone.
Sounds like pure crap. Let me plug in.
I will gladly be the experimental that tries it.
As long as you can make the restore system work right. That is one thing I actually like about Max, is that when you boot into the recovery thing, you can connect to the Wi-Fi network to re-download the OS or whatever if you need to. That I'm okay with. As long as your recovery has access to the Wi-Fi so that I can connect to the internet, I'm okay with that.
Hey, Dave, I got an M1 Mac Mini on my desk.
Also, before we end the show,
it's been 6 weeks since I turned that piece of crap on.
Hold on. Before we end this show, I have a great idea. Sneed, you have Ultrawide at your house now, correct?
That is correct.
You should get Verizon fixed wireless for me. No, seriously, hear me out real quick. Get Verizon fixed wireless for me. Get T-Mobile's home internet for me.
Oh, no.
And then your AT&T fiber. We're going to do some speed tests and collect data together. Pete, your best case scenario for T-Mobile home internet, please get that as well. And then I will collect data from my Comcast and my Fios. And we'll
Can I have T-Mobile fixed internet at 2 houses?
Yes. yes, you can.
Yes, you
but
can.
Listen, we'll collect empirical data. We'll collect data. We'll put it in an Excel sheet and prepare it for a future episode where we'll measure latency, download speeds at different times of day. We'll do YouTube playback tests. We'll use the same YouTube video for consistency's sake. We'll use the same YouTube video. We'll do all kinds of different stuff. And I promise you, with everything holy, the
Dennis
results
just
will look fiber, cable, Verizon fixed wireless, and then T-Mobile home internet at the bottom of the chart.
Dennis just wants us to listen to crap rave.
I'm just saying we can get the emotions out of it and empirically show which is the better internet solution.
For the YouTube video, you should make sure it's something by Taylor Swift.
All right, guys. We'll talk about it later. Thank you to everybody who watched on replay. Hashtag replay crew. Hashtag 2Live crew. Hashtag ravioli gang. Let's do hashtag mod squad for the blue wrenches. Hashtag help the bear.
Hashtag save the bear. Hashtag Sneed get Mastodon.
Dave, you're not going to let me forget, are you?
No, I'm not.
All right. Thanks, Dennis. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Pete. Thanks to everybody with the super chats, all my mods. It was a great show. Thank you guys for all that you do to support us. And it was amazing. Thank you guys again. We out this piece.